At one point in college, I wanted to study and write about Russian fiction. So this might be my one chance to fire off my Tolstoy hot takes. And believe it or not, I used a line from, I think it's the Inquisitor, in my father's eulogy, where he asked the question, is there anything that our inevitable death does not destroy? And so all that to say is I've always found a kinship with the way in which Russian fiction wrestles precisely with this question of despair. And as I was listening to you talk about the person who went to the front as an atheist and who came back as a believer, I thought about my grandmother, actually my great-grandmother. She was a tenant farmer, picked cotton in the South. And she was illiterate, but she was deeply religious. And she would come to me and ask me that I said my prayers, and she kind of passed religion down to my family. And I remember when I got to college and I got to university and I started reading all of these books by David Hume, and I'm getting all of this language around questioning the problem of evil. And oftentimes the problem of evil is related to the question of suffering and human suffering, showing that there couldn't be a God. And I got really into that stuff as an undergrad. And then I remembered, and this is going to get to the question of hope. What was it that actually turned me, I came religious, went through the college doubting phase. What actually reshifted me towards something approaching hope? And I thought a lot about my great-grandmother, who didn't have the rhetorical brilliance of some of the people who I'd read in college, but they were talking about the thing, right? And she was in the midst of it. She was the one who was actually going through those things. And so her wrestling with suffering and evil and doubt as a concrete thing, and her conclusion that there was something, a God that could be a source of comfort to her. I had to take her wrestling and her intellectual, emotional stirring as seriously as I could the people who had the leisure to write about it philosophically. And so it was actually the testimony of people who had suffered. And the question to me was, what was it about what my grandmother believed that allowed her not to be swallowed up by despair in the midst of a Jim Crow South? And I had to say, I had to take her piety as a theologically significant piece of data. And as I ran across the South, right, where I grew up, that same strength was always present in the people who I admired most. And I recognized nihilism hadn't liberated anybody. And so for me, it wasn't simply a pragmatic rejection of nihilism, but it was rooted in the people who I most admired had a sense of hope, moral certainty, and purpose arising from their deep encounter with God that I found compelling, that drew me towards them. And in the same way, it's been something that's been a source of comfort for me. There's a lot more that you could say, but I think there is actually, I'll put it this way, and then I'll give you your thing back. At the center of the African American Christian experience is the question of theodicy, because we come to faith in a land that is marked by chattel slavery. So we've never not wrestled with this real question of why is there evil, and why is this evil seeming so unrelenting? And so when I open Russian fiction, even though it was totally different, they're wrestling with this exact same set of questions. So had I been a little bit better, and had I had the patience to learn Russian, I might have been doing your job.